Hi, it's Linda Fox. I'm senior reporter with PhocusWire, and I'm with Decius Valmorbida. He is the president of travel unit Amadeus. Decius, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Linda. Thank you.
So let's just briefly start with the past year, if you don't mind. What does a travel distribution giant do when there's effectively no travel?
So we work hard on the belief and on the strong confidence that travel is going to come back. So as travel inevitably will come back. So we see now with all of the restrictions, everything that is put in place, we still see a pulse on the industry. We see 25% of travel ongoing. So I think we believe as soon as those restrictions are off, it means that travel is going to go back to the, let's say, mainstream and key infrastructure for all other businesses. So travel will come back. And the question is, when this future unfolds and travel will be back, what is the technology that we need to provide for the industry players to be there and to be successful? So I think that's what we're very busy doing, building the future.
Okay, well, we'll be inevitably talking about that shortly. So many travel companies have talked about right-sizing their organizations. In your view, did travel industry kind of more generally need right-sizing?
So first, right size means a lot of stuff. No, means the capacity, means the demand, means the amount of investment. No, so if we say, did the industry have overcapacity? I think we didn't see that. We saw a lot of capacity discipline. We had traffic growing. So I think in that sense, it was okay. Now, what we do need to see is as recovery comes back, it will take a few years. So IATA's prediction is 2024. So we're probably going to see 3 years until traffic goes back to 2019. What do we do then with capacity? Now, how can we manage this properly this way back? So I think there will be, let's say, a short-term problem with the recovery, but long-term, I think we're going to be okay and all right. In terms of investments, is an industry that requires lots of investment. If we talk about what travelers expect from the industry, we still needed to do a lot of investments on customer experience, on digitalization, on responding as an ecosystem. So I think that investment, there is still plenty to do and plenty of opportunities to make the industry better. So in that sense, I think that was underinvestment and we're going to see more investment. So the real question mark is on demand. Know how and when will demand come back? I think we're all crossing our fingers for vaccination to be a hurdle that we go over in 2021 and see 2022 as the first year of full recovery, given the fact that we're going to have a herd immunity and vaccination behind us, because we're going to be able to accomplish now in 2021.
So if, as many are saying, the industry gets smaller, perhaps medium to longer term, do you think there's a need for 3, arguably 4 GDSs?
So let's start with the first part. Now, will the industry get smaller? From our point of view, leisure industry was growing very, very fast. So we see that the more that the industry was able to bring lower fares, low cost, and make it travel more affordable, you had more and more consumers who were willing to jump on the industry. So I think saying that the industry is not going to go back to its original size, I challenge that a little bit. I think in terms of business travel, there is a lot of talk about we have a lot of technology now, so will really travel be needed? I think that all businesses were traveling only on the essential elements when we're talking about top executives, building trust, M&A activities. So, I mean, we were already reducing travel to the essential, not only because of the price, but because it took a lot of the productivity away from people. When you were on the road, it means that you were less productive, no? So technology, you can argue, can replace or can enable that you're more productive on a trip. So I would see business travel going back very much to where it was. So in that sense, no, I don't see the industry getting smaller, no. Now, to the alternatives of the GDS, is do we really need several GDSs? I think that every mature industry tends to concentrate and saying if it is an industry of economies of scale, the tendency, and as we have seen, and we believe in Amadeus, the tendency is for the leader to gain more share. So we believe that, yes, we will be the one having more and more share versus the others. Now, the question is, are we the only alternative? Is the GDS the only alternative for distribution? And I think there are plenty. The GDS is one construct, which is a combination of technology and business model. We believe there are going to be other constructs where you have technology with different business models happening, and that the tendency is competition will exist in these many other ways of distributing the product. So I think that's what we at Amadeus were focused at, not only being the leading GDS, but being the leader in all distribution. So this means several other ways of distributing content that we will invest and will try to compete against our traditional. Yes.
Can you elaborate on that? What kind of other sort of constructs within business models that you might be able to get involved in?
Perfect. Let's start with one example. We have today the meta searches. The meta searches, they have a different model where they are more on the advertising side, not as much on the servicing side. And there are referrals from the meta search sites to directly the airlines.com. So obviously with time, meta searchers are looking into how to build all of this aggregation technology and all of these referrals. So is it something that we can help and we can support and we can assist? No. Today we have meta search customers. We are providing data and we have that. You have on the corporate space, you have OBTs and corporate booking tools where you have corporations like to take more control over the management of their corporate travel programs. So this leads into sometimes preferred supplier relationships with some of the vendors. So I may have a preferred airline, I may have a preferred hotel, and you would like that relationship to happen directly. So how can we support that and enhance that type of relationship? No? And we have, let's say, ever larger agencies with ever larger airlines. We can see that based on what we launched, which was the private channel at the moment. That is being fastly replaced by NDC. And then on NDC, you have these one-to-one relationships of large airlines with large agencies. How you power that? We can call that a GDS, but honestly, the construct in technology and business model is different. So I would almost argue that NDC is a different frontier. So I leave GDS very much as, let's say, the EDIFACT legacy way of doing things. And I see Amadeus as a technology platform that enables the OGDS plus the NDC, plus the metas, plus the corporate direct. So I see a lot more variety on the distribution landscape moving forward.
But you talk about being an intermediary to support a direct relationship, which sounds a bit of a contradiction in terms.
It is not. Any intermediate is there to create economies of scale and saying, how can I help someone not having to insource? So let's go into the infrastructure. If an airline today would like to activate and have direct connects with every single player of the industry, it's like how many people you have, how are you going to support that in several time zones? How are you going to make the investments, all of the methods of payment? So just on that, on the infrastructure alone, if you say, hey, you know what, you have a technology intermediary that can do all of that and do that on behalf of several players, that's the typical thing of platform businesses. It's the same way as why no one has their own CRM, no one has their own ERP, no one is going to have their development and implementation of their own electronic distribution system, because you can benefit from economies of scale. Now, what are going to be the rules of the market of who's going to talk to who? That is very much dependent on the amount of competition, who's strong and who's not, power of the brand. So we're not here to dictate who's going to be talking to who. We are here to enable that all of those commercial relationships can be powered by our technology.
So what are you thinking of in terms of your longer term vision of travel?
So our long-term vision of travel, number one, what stays from this, let's call it black swan event, which was the pandemic and the COVID 2019. I think one point you have mentioned, which is if volume is going to be a question mark and we're going to have this recovery process, how much effort will the industry be putting on value? So I think that we had volume growth and traffic growth as a key worry, let's say, of the industry, how to make sure that we could carry 6% more passengers every year. And I think now there's going to be a shift towards how can we make sure that every one of those trips, we were able to fulfill the brand promise, we were able to fulfill what was required by the traveler so that we make most out of every trip. Because there is going to be a price issue, no? Where it's like your cost didn't go away, you have a demand that you need to stimulate. So it is like pricing, we're going to have a challenge in there. And it means we need to give a reason of why the traveler should be paying a little more. So I think a lot of focus on value, a lot of focus on bringing this end-to-end customer experience. The industry has developed around sectors and silos. So we can say that airlines are thinking what they're going to do, rail companies, what they are going to do, hotels, airports, and no one can really give the end-to-end experience for a customer or of a trip. So it's like how we're going to create elements for collaboration. Because in order to really say to the traveler, you should be paying us a little bit more, you need to be able to deliver an experience that they expect. And that will require collaboration across the industry. So that's another element. And third, I think that the industry was lagging behind in terms of this digital principle, which means that we need to simplify the business, which means we need to get away from legacy concepts like having a ticket or if you are going on a shopping basket, you have multiple numbers for being for talking to multiple providers. So I think there is a lot of simplification that needs to be taken in place. Tech there is going to have a big role. So how can we leverage the NDC, the one order concept, and all of these transformations so that the travel industry is more digital and more in line with all travelers are experiencing in other industries, rather than, let's say, a very friction-based experience that they have today with papers, physical passports, and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of opportunity for tech, biometrics, digital passports, and digital review of the processes to come into play.
So just going back to your second point there, that those elements for collaboration, you know, the industry talks about or has talked about the need to collaborate for many years and never quite been able to achieve it on a grand scale. So what are the hurdles that remain in terms of getting to that sort of greater spirit of collaboration?
I think the big elephant in the room is how the value is split. So it is like every time that we're going to discuss about a trip is who has done more of the job. Was the airline who carried the traveler to the destination? Was the hotel at the destination? Were the intermediary that managed to bring the attention of the traveler? So I think that we have several use cases, let's call it this way, several situations where value can be split differently. And we tried a bit with one business model and one answer, trying to answer all of these questions. And I think that has been the issue. No, but in a way, the industry was doing well because it's like you had growth. So it's kind of, we all had our base and we were fighting for that additional volume that was bringing every year. I think now that we are in a situation where you have to rebuild the industry, so not even the destinations are set to be, it's like, will everyone do their lesson on COVID? Will all destinations be open for business? Will restrictions not be there? How are you going to redeploy that capacity? So I think it goes back to, let's say, building the industry from a place where everyone will have to collaborate in order to bring the industry back to the volumes that were. So I think that we are forced in a way by the situation of revisiting the base and not only the increment. So I think that's the big difference between what was the situation before and what is going to be the situation now.
And this vision for travel going forward, what's Amadeus kind of set itself up? How has it set itself up to fit into this vision of travel?
Okay. So from our point of view is we continue very much on the focus of being a B2B. So meaning we would like to be the technology player that enables our customers to go through this transformation. So as I was mentioning before, how do we help them go into this digital world? So we're doing investments of bringing our platform to the cloud and bringing our products together to act more as a platform rather than separate products. Bringing together what we had before is silos. So an airline system, a travel agency system, an airport system, trying to bring them together and create those points of interaction, allowing for that end-to-end customer experience, and a lot of focus on how will our products drive value. So meaning how can really, by the fact that our customers are using our product, they're able to market their products and services to travelers in a way that they can make the additional dollar, the additional few dollars, and that has to be in line with what they had in mind for their strategy, which was unbundling and ever segmenting the market. Now, before, I think we were pretty satisfied with business traveler, leisure traveler, early booker, late booker. No, so it was pretty, let's say, relatively okay dimensions to work with. It's like how we're going to move forward and say, even me, Decius, when I'm traveling for business, I don't behave the same when I'm traveling with my family, with wife and kids. So the question is, when I change my persona, what is the right offer for me? So I think bringing this element of being dynamic, understanding what is the context of the trip, and bringing the best offer to that specific context, I think that's a part that technology can help a lot on achieving that. And that, for me, it is one of the key levers for unlocking profitability in the industry.
Do you think that, it's obviously going to have to be quite a sensitive message in terms of getting that value from the consumer, those extra $5 or $10 for, perhaps consumers who, I don't know, they may have had their hours chopped, they may no longer have a job. It's going to be a difficult sort of transition period, isn't it?
Look, I think there is always, if you say, I prefer to do it once well done than twice half-baked. So it is like, yes, if you are on an economical situation, maybe you could afford a holiday every year, but then you're going to decide that you only do it every 18 months. So it's like, that's why I think the volume is going to be there. The thing is, once you decide to go on that trip, notice like, why are you willing to pay for a cab and not take the train to go to the airport? Why are you willing maybe to pay $12 on a cup of coffee at the terminal and not when you are inside the plane? So what I'm saying is, I think that the addressable market can be much larger, and saying that $5-10 that we have to capture, it has to be associated with value that you provide to the traveler. If you say that I want to like $5 and $10 extra dollars for at the end of the day providing the same service, consumer will feel I'm being ripped off. It is like I'm just paying more for what I had. But if you're actually able to create value and say, no, there is a different experience you didn't have, there is this other choice, we're saving your time. We're able to give you the link to the airport easier. We're able to add the additional bag that you were not thinking. We are able to give you the meal you were expecting, some entertainment. So it's like, I think there are a lot of areas that real value can be created, and then consumers will feel it is a good deal, saying, you know what, yeah, I'm paying an additional 10, but my life is easier in XYZ way. So because my life is easier, that's a good deal. So I think we need to think on bringing solutions that will be of value and not thinking of how I'm going to outsmart the traveler and take $10 for giving them the same thing. That's certainly not going to work.
Okay, let's move on to innovation in travel technology and distribution. So EasyJet's chief executive said last week during a session that much of the very needed money for investment in innovation had now been kind of stripped away. So, what are you hearing from airlines, and where might those pockets of innovation come, given that there's really no money there?
Yeah, I think there are two moments. I think there is the current moment when you're saying, I'm burning cash, and really I'm talking about just the survival of the company. And So you're really looking into very short-term returns. So it is like, there is money for you to do, but I need to see returns in 3 months and 6 months. That has been very much the reality of 2020. But it is like all of those short-term ideas are starting to fade away, because it's like all of those quick wins you have already implemented. And thus there is a larger amount of debate on saying, now that it's very clear that it's going to take multiple years for us to be there and for us to fully recover, how do we start the long-term investments for us to be the leader once the industry is fully reestablished in 2024? So I see very much a shift with the customers on thinking long-term and saying, what are the necessary investments for me to be the leader in 2024? Is there money available? Yes, there is money available, because they're always going to be the winners of the industry in 2024. So it is like, I think that all of our customers are discussing with their shareholders, with their banks, on saying how we recapitalize the company to be the number one when the industry recovers. So because the travel industry is going to be there, and there's plenty of money to be invested, and I think the winners will always get their fair share.
So has the pandemic made the idea of this end-to-end experience more possible, do you think?
Number one, the openness for collaboration, I think it makes it more possible. No, on the moment that alone, we're all struggling, we're all burning cash, and need to come together for us to rebuild the industry, stimulating demand and being able to bring travelers back and so on and so forth, I think has created a spirit that everyone, it is, let's say, more open. Second, I think this drive to digitalization and technology makes the fact that you can do this hand-ons and hand-offs of customer experience more possible. No, before, imagine I'm an airline and I decided to sell a hotel together with my airline ticket. What if something goes wrong on the hotel? So the sheer servicing of that was going to be very strong and very difficult. It is like, but now if you have the leading airline partnering with the lead, let's say, hotel chain, or the leading distributor of hotels in the planet, and they decide to come together, all of a sudden they're going to have a better end-to-end offer. So I would say, instead of one stepping on each other's areas, I think there is now more probability of alliances, and that will translate into end-to-end experiences for the traveler. No, and less at the idea that I can invest on everything and my brand is going to be responsible for the end-to-end through my investments. No, because it is going to be impossible for everyone to invest on everything. So the market will lead to more alliances.
So do we see more different business models emerge? And that could be sort of subscription models in airlines. And how much does that change in terms of how distribution works?
I think there is going to be plenty of experimentation. So on the moment that you are rebuilding the industry and you're bringing demand back, why not? Why not discuss subscriptions? Why not discuss preferred arrangements, being a preferred provider? Why not discuss about what is going to be my loyalty programs and how they're going to work? Or is there cheaper ways? So what is the immediate impact in distribution? Number one, it is this openness. No, all of a sudden I'm going to be playing different roles. So it is like, maybe for one specific market, I'm the full-fledged intermediary that does from A to Z. And maybe on those other cases, I'm only doing from A to F. No, so it is like, you may have same two companies, but actually having different business models for different flows. No, in business and leisure, different geographies, different territories. So I would say for distribution will be this openness mindset of enabling different experiments, let's say, that they're going to happen. And a little bit more, something that we see in the technology industry happening a lot, which is the co-opetition. So it's like the lines of black and white of, do you collaborate with me, or are you my competition?
Your frenemy.
It's going to be, exactly. It's going to be a lot more blurred when we're going to have to say, It's like, yes, we compete on that space, but we collaborate on that other space. So I see a much more dynamic future for distribution and on those lines.
So, given how much change there is and everybody trying to feel their way through and all of this need to cooperate, where does a company like Amadeus place its research and development bets in the time of such uncertainty?
Okay. So I think that starts from first the way that we need to change how we work. No, good old days. We would see a future where we would plan ahead and start making investments 3 years in advance to know exactly where we are. I think we need to change a lot the ways of working. So internally, we're putting a lot of effort on our end-to-end agile transformation. So instead of us coming with the idea, going out to the market and saying this is what we're going to develop, is how can we co-create? How can we partner with our clients and say, you have an idea, let's do it together, let's see if it works, and let's test it in the market. So less prescriptive and a lot more data-based. I think that's one big change that we have. Obviously, we have a few certainties, as I have mentioned, a more collaborative future, platform-based, so on and so forth. And then on those, we go with our, let's say, traditional business model, where what Amadeus is doing is we continue to invest. We continue, despite the crisis, we continue to invest euros and dollars on the bets that we believe are certain, and we just hope that once the industry emerge, that means better time to market for us. That when customers say, "This is what I need," we say, "And we have already developed for you."
So I'm betting that NDC is one of your bets. You've got obviously large airline Delta retrenching currently with its NDC effort, and then you've got Air France KLM going full steam ahead, and I know they're a partner of yours. So how does a company like Amadeus balance the needs of, say, a larger airline that perhaps has decided to, or even a medium-tier airline that's decided to not follow that strategy, versus one that is going for it big time?
Yeah, look, we have the two solutions, right? So first is we have our airline IT solutions, where we say to airlines, hey, here, if you would like to take things and the matters and control on your hands, this is the technology that you need in order to do that. And then we have our other value proposition, which is if you're able to live on a condominium, if you're able to live on more of a shared basis instead of having things exactly the way you want, and being able to share the infrastructure with others, we believe you're going to have a lot benefits in terms of cost, and then you can use the aggregator, you can use what the Amadeus travel platform, as we call it, and you were referring to as the GDS in the past, no? So I think that there are airlines for all kinds of strategy. So I think there are airlines that already came to the conclusion of saying, insourcing this, bringing me to do this across all of the time zones and with all of the markets is impossible. I will fully subscribe to this new GDS proposition, this new aggregator proposition, and I'm going to go with you and outsource to you. You have other airlines who are saying, I want a hybrid approach. It's like, for markets where my brand is not strong, I'm happy to go with you. But for the markets where my brand is strong, I still believe I'm going to take matters into my own hand. But as I want to work with travel agencies who use you, then I'm willing to talk to you. I'm willing to talk to you because in a way, I want the travel agency to have a technology that they are already used to. So having Amadeus, it makes sense. I would say 95% of our customers fall into one of those two categories. No? Do we have outliers who say, I want to build my own thing. I don't care that it's Amadeus, and this is my technology, and everyone else will have to adapt to me? Yes, there are customers that are going that way. We'll see. These are all bets and strategies. I'm not here to say that they are right or wrong. I'm saying I hope to execute on the other two and prove that our method, it is better than trying to have total control. I think that's our bet. So far, I think that we're having very good traction on both sides.
Do you think the commercial element will always be the elephant? Sorry, the commercial element will always be the elephant in the room.
It's always the debate. So I think we're trying as much as we can to make sure that technology goes its way. So meaning we're enhancing the NDC standard, we are having several customers that we're working, we're launching new releases that independent of the business model discussion. So I think the product from a technology point of view will be ready. And we are making a big bet that NDC will be the future standard because of everything that I mentioned before. Future is dynamic. Future is more collaboration and let's say more experimental products. So NDC is the right standard for us to do all of that. So that we continue. On the business model, so as I mentioned, we have convinced large partners, Air France, KLM, Qantas, Singapore, many others who have decided to be with us and go with this journey with us. Some others we haven't convinced. I think that with the ones that have given our trust, if we're able to provide results, I hope that those that haven't come yet will realize and say, you know, why fight? Let me join something that is working rather than insist on my own plan that might not be working. So I think that I need to focus on the ones I have and delivering on the ones who have decided to work with us.
So from your perspective, has the pandemic exposed elements of airline distribution and the industry more widely that now need to be addressed?
I think the number one I have already mentioned is how do we make distribution focus on value rather than focusing on volumes. That's a big thing. If you're investing hundreds of millions in euros of your product, in order to bring that value up, you would like your distribution channel to be on the same page as you are. So I think that's what we need to do. Number two is I think there is an alignment on bringing demand. So all of a sudden is before demand was taken for granted, and you said, look, I have passengers every time, and it's like I don't care, and you know they're gonna fill up my planes. It's like now every passenger counts. So I think that the fact that you cannot ignore a part of the market helps as well, and say, no, I need to be in a good position with everyone, and I need to find a way of working with everyone. Third element, it is what I mentioned, is this openness around how are we going, when are we going to compete, and when are we going to collaborate, because we're going to have to be more used to this duality, let's say, this ambiguity, where we're not going to be able to just distinguish ourselves between are we friends or enemies. We're going to have to be, as you mentioned,
frenemies.
Frenemies, and agree on what areas that we go together and what the areas that we don't agree, and we go apart, and let the market decide who's right or wrong.
And have you kind of seen over the past year or so any particular business models that you think have shown themselves up to be weaker than others?
Look, I think that in the industry has been a lot of discussion around money flows. So a lot of questions about who pays who. And I think that probably it is a debate that won't matter. No, as you go and you talk to travelers, they say, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who pays who. I pay you all. It's I've seen corporations saying that. I have seen leisure travelers say that. So it's like if the price is unbundled, bundled, if there is transparency, not transparency, the thing is I would like to have full service proposition, and I'm the one who's paying you. So it's like you should get your act together. So I think that's one thing that probably we shouldn't spend a lot of energy on. And the big energy is where do we add value or not add value? So I think that's going to be the real challenge is like, do I really need an intermediary for me to talk to a traveler? If on this particular use case is like, maybe no. And on another, certainly yes, no. So I think that intermediaries, they add a lot of value on always, no, on the high touch, on the bringing economies of scale, promoting a destination. So I think probably focusing more, working on where we add value and making agreements there is what we need to do. And that's where the business model should be focused on, is on areas that we agree and collaborate and not areas that we prohibit each other from entering.
So earlier on when we were talking, you kind of summed yourself up as president as everything that moves within Amadeus. And so that's corporates and that's rail and that's aviation and lots of other things, I'm sure. So, you know, when you talk with your colleague Paco and he's involved in the accommodation side specifically, you know, is his agenda the same as yours or very similar right now coming out of the pandemic, or has he, you know, got very different kind of priorities?
A few trends are very similar. So this idea of focusing on value, the idea that we need to be more platform businesses, the idea that more collaboration is needed, I think those are very much the same across the industry, and how bring demand back. Now, how strike and support the traveler confidence that traveling is something that should be restarted and reinitiated. I think that there is lots of convergence. On the elements that there is not as much convergence is the part of how much does you on destination believe that you can differentiate. And you're saying, if I have a customer and I'm in contact with a customer for a week, how many opportunities do I have to differentiate if I'm with a customer for 2 hours or 3 hours? So I think there are plenty of difference is on the hospitality side. There is a lot more variety on the supply. So they strongly believe in a lot more possibility for differentiation. If you're talking about on the transportation side, you see that you have two schools of thought. Now, if you go to the low-cost carriers, they're saying, well, differentiation within boundaries. Reality is operational efficiency is the real thing. If you talk about the premium traffic, which is the long distance and so on and so forth, there you're going to see the differentiation is a stronger element. So I think that hospitality is more closely positioned on the idea of differentiation. I think on the airline side, a little bit more debate on differentiation versus operational efficiency.
Okay, so just to finish up here, just putting our last kind of 35 minutes aside, if you were asked to summarize, you know, how the industry now might future-proof itself given the Black Swan event we've just had, what would you say, just kind of briefly?
I think the industry, number one, will learn to be a lot more variable in general, a lot more dynamic in general. So the contracts will be on variable terms. They are all going to have adjustment clauses in case demand goes down and in case demands go up. I think that's going to happen. Cycles to be faster, more collaboration, so more exchange of data, more ways of looking at the traveler and making sure that we extract maximum value of each trip. So I think for me, those are going to be the two big lessons added to what was already a revolution that was ongoing, simplifying the business, digitalization, and making use of all of the tools that are available. So for me, those are the three key elements of the agenda there are going to be for the new industry that will emerge.
Decius, thank you for your time.
No, thank you, Linda.